to energize the oil to want to come up, and also corrosion inhibitors to make the pipe not corrode. Another big one will be on an offshore platform. You're in the middle of the sea with salt water, and you've got these large plunger pumps pulling up the oil. These pumps are sending chemicals down to help make the chemical come up, but also to keep the corrosion inhibitors in the pipelines to prevent the salt water from corroding the pipes.
I see. Okay.
In power generation, a big one is in power, you're moving water. You're moving a lot of water in your system. This is treating the water so that it doesn't corrode all of the equipment that the water touches in a power plant. In a chemical plant, you might be, let's say like petrochemical, you're making petrochemicals by using emulsions or naphthalene or byproducts of oil. And this is injecting the chemicals that make it a plastic compound. So they need high precision, high pressure to inject the appropriate amount of chemical.
Okay, but look, what I hear, exactly, right? So this is, again, high precision. This is the ability to, to put exactly this, accurately, exactly this amount of substance, whatever, and probably depends on the chemicals, right, which you can work with, and then flowing pressure. So that's more or less what you also mentioned for LMI. Are there any differences for Milton-Roy?
These are much higher pressure. So if you look at LMI is going to be up to maybe 150 psi, or let's see, what do they say? Maybe 200 psi. But if you look at these pumps, these are much more rugged and more industrial applications where they'll go up to, as you see, 20,000 psi. So it's a much more rugged design for higher pressure and larger flows.
Got it. Okay, so that's basically the same, but for the larger scale.
Yeah.
Okay. And the same question with competition.
Sure.
Who do they compete with?
Okay, so Milroy, M-Roy, G-Series, that's primarily competing with Pulsafeeder. Braun and Luby out of Germany. Lewa, L-E-W-A, out of Germany. I would say those are probably the majors. There's lots of regional manufacturers, but those are probably the big global ones. And once you get into the Power and the Mega Royal, I'd say that's less Pulsafeeder and more Braun and Luby, Lewa, Nikiso out of Japan, Nikkiso. Oh, that's a Japanese product. That's probably the major players.
I see. So just to recap on this, so you mentioned Pulsafeeder, Lewa, so Lewa, Braun Luby, Nikkiso, so from Japan.
Not Iwaki doesn't compete here. Iwaki's on the LMI side.
Okay.
But out of Japan is Nikiso.
So how do you spell it?
Nikkiso.
Okay, Nikiso, got it. Have we missed anything? So pulsafeeder, Leva, Bran, Luby, Nikiso?
This is probably the biggest. This is probably double the size of LMI. I don't know if you know sizes, but I would say Milton Roy is probably 2 to 3 times LMI. And they're probably global leader. They're probably number 1 in market share. They're very strong in the United States and Asia Pacific. And then Lewa and Braun and Luby are probably number 2 and 3, and they're probably strongest in Europe, Middle East, and doing quite well in the United States.
Both of them, you mean pulsafeeder and Leva?
Yes. In fact, I believe Lewa is now owned by Nikiso, and I know that Braun and Luby is owned by SPX Flow.
By whom? Sorry.
SPX Flow.
SPX Flow. Yeah, I got it.
Okay.
Got it. Do you know any? Can you estimate some market shares globally?
Milton Roy, I would guess, is probably I'd say 18% would be my guess.
Yeah.
I'd say Lewa. Well, Braun and Luby's probably next. Maybe 15. Lewa might be 12. And pulsafeeder might be 6 or 7.
Gotcha. Okay. Nikiso probably less, right, than 6 7.
Nikiso. Nikiso has so many other products, so it's hard for me to. I'd say let's say maybe 5 in this particular space.
Yeah. Yeah, got it.
But they are one of. I mean, they're one of the biggest, just not in this particular segment.
Right. By the way, maybe coming back to this slide with Milton Roy. Does the structuring make sense to you? So we put first metering pumps, process pumps, and then basically within both we structure them by pressure.
Yes, I think that's the way. Working for these types of manufacturers, that's the way we broke them down: is metering versus process, and then by pressure handling capability. Yeah, that looks good.
Okay, and then 2 questions here. What is the key difference between metering versus process pumps?
Metering is generally very high accuracy of dosing. So when you set a pressure, you need a very highly accurate amount of flow. Process is not as important on the flow. You could have more variability because you're usually just circulating a liquid or transferring a liquid.
Okay, but that has impact on where they used, right? And you mentioned
not necessarily. You need both of them in all applications. So even when you're treating water, you need a pump to move the water. It doesn't matter how much water you're moving, but then you need a pump that's dosing the chemical, and you have to have a very accurate amount of chemical that goes into that process.
So you can sell them as a package, right?
Generally they're used together. They're not always sold as a package, but at the end use application, they're usually side by side.
That's great insight. Great.
So you might have like